Good morning. Welcome to my session. My name is Alexa Alice Joubin. I am Professor of English and co-director of Taiwan Education and Research Program at George Washington University in Washington, D.C. This is a recording of my talk at an event in Leiden, in the Netherlands. Welcome to the International Institute for Asian Studies Symposium on Women's Cinema from Taiwan, Transnational and Comparative Perspectives. My talk today explores transness and mixed race performance in Taiwanese women's cinema. Specifically, I will be speaking about a fascinating all-female Taiwanese film, As We Like It, 皆大欢喜, which was released in 2021. It was screened at several film festivals around the world, including Rotterdam, Pittsburgh, New York, Asian Film Festivals, and Global Taiwan Institute in Washington, D.C. As its title suggests, this Taiwanese film is an adaptation of Shakespeare's 1599 pastoral comedy, As You Like It. In Shakespeare, the resourceful protagonist, Rosalind, challenges traditional 16th century assumptions about women being passive and helpless. She disguises herself as Ganymede and ventures into the forest of Arden in pursuit of her lover, Orlando. Her cousin Celia, who goes into banishment with her, crosses the class line rather than the gender line. Celia disguises herself as a shepherdess named Aliena. Both noblewomen leave behind a father figure in their cushioned life in the court to expand their horizon in the forest. In the Taiwanese film, the forest of Arden becomes the urban jungle that is Taipei. The film is set in an internet-free neighborhood called the Arden, where a courier delivery of handwritten love letters is the norm, and where bonding through palmistry reigns supreme. Instead of online dating, characters fall in love and fall out of love in alleyways and palm reading parlors. As Rosalind and Celia arrive into Taipei's Ximanding district, the internet-free zone, their phones stop working. This anxiety-triggering digital isolation is a contemporary parallel to the exile into the forest in Shakespeare's play. In Shakespeare's times, women were prohibited from performing on the public stage. Female parts were commonly played by the so-called boy actors, prepubescent boys who were apprentices. The all-female Taiwanese film, As We Like It, is a counter-dose to the early modern all-male performance tradition. The co-directors envisioned it as a talk-back to masculinist conventions and assumptions. It engages in gender play, both matter-of-factly and self-reflexively. In one scene, a character asks, "If I transform into a man, will anyone love me?" The Rosalind in the film presents themselves as Roosevelt. Instead of Ganymede, like in Shakespeare, Roosevelt gives advice to the lover Orlando and coaches him on courtship. The film espouses a trans aesthetic and employs a mixed-race actress. This is important during the global pandemic of COVID-19, when toxic notions of purity informed public health policies and anti-Asian racism. The romantic comedy deconstructs prejudiced assumptions of identitarian purity. The female-led film envisioned an inclusive, futuristic, post-gender society in Taiwan. It is shot in a psychedelic magical realist style. Let us take a look at the two co-directors, Chen Hung-I and Wei Ying-chuan, also known as Mooney Wei. So, first up, Mooney Wei. She co-founded Shakespeare's Wild Sisters group, as well as the theater company called Creation Society. She is a seasoned director who regularly engages with Western classics, and she co-directed As We Like It with her partner, Chen Hung-I. Notably, Wei already has more than 30 stage plays. She holds a degree from NYU in theater education. As for Chen, he is known for several films. In 2017, he co-directed with Wei a murder mystery film entitled The Last Painting, 自画像, On the day of the 2016 Taiwanese presidential election, a college student is found dead in her apartment. Her naked body is covered with oil paint. The film uses transness to allegorize Taiwan's dilemma of not being recognized by most countries. Together, Wei and Chen created As You Like It, a psychedelic film that curiously straddles between lesbian, girl love, and danmei genres. Notably, danmei usually refers to gay romance written by women for female readership. As Roosevelt, Rosalind attempts to cure Orlando of his love sickness. Now, As We Like It is not a gay romance. It is not a lesbian romance. That's what's so radical about it. It is really what might be termed a post-gender film. An important historical context is that in 2019, Taiwan's legislative body passed legislation to legalize same-sex marriage. As We Like It is a fascinating specimen of gender-bending women's cinema from Taiwan. The film presents characters of all genders matter-of-factly, without apology or additional justification. All characters are played by actors identifying as women. The film does not change the names or genders of the characters taken from Shakespeare, compared to other films in Taiwan, such as the all-male gay film Formula 17, 17岁的天空 by Chen Hung-I, or the mixed cast gay romance Your Name Engraved, Herein, 刻在心底的名字. As We Like It is quite unique in its all-female heterosexual cast. Formula 17, having an all-male cast, focuses on queer relationship, while in contrast, As We Like It, despite its all-female cast, curiously insists on compulsory heterosexuality in several of its key characters. So the centrality of the character Orlando, taken from Shakespeare and transformed in As We Like It, calls to mind not only Shakespeare's comedy, but also Sally Potter's film adaptation of Virginia Woolf's novel, Orlando. The name Orlando is gender neutral, which lends itself to gender ambiguity. In the novel and film, Orlando is not marked as trans, but lives through several centuries in masculine and feminine presentations. In Potter's film, Quentin Crisp plays Queen Elizabeth I. She came out as a trans woman posthumously in her memoir, which gives the film new meanings. You will notice the word transness in the title of my talk today. There are two publicly trans actresses who play minor roles towards the end of the film. There are also what is conventionally understood as cross-dressing acts. However, I use transness to refer to a broad range of identitarian practices beyond simply gender assignment or reassignment, and transness really is a mode of analysis rather than a diagnostic tool. The idea of trans as a prefix is useful in feminist resistance to the patriarchal symbolic order in terms of its refusal to be consigned to a destination or a final form. I use transness to analyze gender practices in the film. We can use a trans lens to excavate latent transness in all narratives. Transness is a type of knowledge everyone can derive from both personally embodied experiences and from being adjacent to transness. So As We Like It is a trans-adjacent narrative. We can appreciate latent transness in almost all works, because all writers can produce trans narratives, as well as narratives that may or may not align with their self-identification. So transness and mixed race identities are two of the most important themes in this film, especially when we think about the Franco-Taiwanese mixed race actress Camille Charlon, and her cross-gender and bilingual performance of Celia in the film, along with two openly trans actresses backpassing act. The all-female cast takes on cross-gender roles to talk back to the patriarchy who would not allow female actors on stage, according to the closing credit of the film. Some individuals in trans communities, they use the idea of backpassing to refer to the act of passing as one's birth gender after they have medically transitioned to a new role. So people engage in backpassing for physical safety, job security, social convenience, and any number of reasons. The film does away with such binary gender accessories as mustaches or wigs. It presents characters of all genders matter-of-factly, without apology. And they are all played by actors identifying as women off screen. Therefore, this is a fine example of women's cinema from Taiwan. It engages in a trans-historical and cross-cultural dialogue. In counseling the lovelorn Rosalind, who presents themselves as Roosevelt, Celia fashions herself into an authority on courtship by frequently playing up her French cultural background and Taiwanese heritage. Camille Chalon's facility with the French language is deployed as a technology of race making to construct Western authority, while her lighter skin tone contributes to the form of androgyny that is celebrated in the film. In this context, Chalon's use of French and skin whitening makeup is mapped onto an unarticulated but positive notion of whiteness that is associated with the West. The presence of mixed-race actors questions the imposition of traditional monoracial categories and counter the enforcement of monoracial norms that are prevalent in Taiwan. The race-making processes in the film thus construct, assign, and perform select racial categories. The sisterly affection between Rosalind and Celia informs and extends beyond their joint project to test Orlando's true character. Several things hint at romantic interest between Celia and Roosevelt, between Roosevelt and Orlando, and between Celia and Oliver. The arrangement is a nod to the fact that while on the page, Rosalind seems to be the only cross-gender role as Ganymede in the Forest of Arden, on the early modern stage, Celia's role as well as Rosalind's Ganymede, they were actually in doubled drag. Both involved cross-gender enactments by boy actors. The all-female cast in the Taiwanese film engaged in double drag acts as well. Since these are actresses who would take on roles that would have a gender different from their self-identification, who may in some scenes then dress up to engage in gender play. So they would cross over the line multiple times. There's one potentially anti-trans caveat, presenting themselves as a palmist named Roosevelt. Rosalind opens a palm reading salon called Arden in that internet-free neighborhood. Orlando follows Roosevelt's flyer advertising their service, and he makes his way to this salon. He produces a photo of Rosalind and asks for Roosevelt's advice on how to win her heart. As the session progresses, Orlando becomes distracted and begins to remark on the similarity between Roosevelt and Rosalind in several categories, ranging from their hair texture to body odor. The scene concludes with Orlando catching on to the supposed imperfection of Rosalind's cross-gender act, which is a toxic filmic trope of outing transgender characters against their will. It is here the Franco-Taiwanese Celia comes to Rosalind's rescue. The film does redeem itself in a different scene, and it's seen in the men's room. Orlando follows Roosevelt into the men's room awkwardly. Roosevelt eventually goes into a stall for more privacy. He sits on the toilet and makes distracting noise in order to peel open a feminine pad. The scene dramatizes a typical form of trans trauma and discomfort. Of course, it is an example of the so-called close calls, which this film plays with. So with all this richness, the film has not been studied or taught as part of the emerging canon of trans cinema and of race works due to the tendency in the West to gravitate towards explicitly trans narratives and the assumption that only the work of actors of color in Anglo-American context are worthy of analysis. I will conclude with a little bit of context of Asian adaptations. Since the building of the Globe Theatre in London in 1599, Shakespeare's works have had a global impact through touring productions. In Asia, stage and film directors have mounted hundreds of adaptations of Shakespeare's comedies and tragedies. Today, Shakespeare is one of the most frequently performed playwrights in East Asia. What's in the name? That which we call a rose by an Asian name would smell as sweet. In fact, in As We Like It, at one point, they do make comments about names and naming conventions, citing directly the line from Romeo and Juliet, what's in a name? Speaking of names, I should mention the creative translation of Orlando's name into Taiwanese as Arden, which refers to Arden soup, which is a very popular snack. It's a Taiwanese spin on the Japanese Arden, which you can buy in 7-Eleven, as well as roadside stalls. It's basically fish cake cooked in radish soup. Notable in East Asian adaptations, such as We Like It, but many, many other examples, are word choices and gender roles, formal and informal language, as well as personal gender pronouns. They could reveal or conceal the power a character might have over others. The Taiwanese film engages in gender play on its own terms and on its own turf. Once again, thank you for joining me in Leiden, the Netherlands, for the International Institute for Asian Studies Symposium on Women's Cinema from Taiwan.